Dear friend, today we will discuss the dural venous sinuses. How the dural venous sinuses are formed and what are the different types of the dural venous sinuses, and out of these we will discuss one or two sinus. Dural venous sinuses are formed between the two layers of the dura mater. First we will see here, every bone is outer side is covered by the periosteum. Okay, and inner side in the cranial cavity there is a endosteum. Okay, in the vertebral canal there is a separate endosteum, but here in the cranial cavity there is no separate endosteum. In the brain, there are three meninges: dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. If you go outside to inside. Here, dura mater in the cranial cavity made up of the two layers, outer layer and the inner layer. Outer layer is adhered to this bone, okay, in the cranial bone here. In the roof, okay, in the calvaria, as well as this is calvaria, and here in the floor and the side. So one layer is attached here, adhere with the fibrous tissue, and that layer acts as an endosteum, okay, endosteal layer of the cranial cavity, while the inner layer or the second layer of the dura mater is known as the meningeal layer. Okay, so endosteal layer here, okay, here, and the meningeal layer also adhere with the endosteal layer, but at certain places this meningeal layer leaves this endosteal layer, okay, or separate, okay, and when the separation between the endosteal and the meningeal layer occur, and this separation creates a gap, and this gap is filled with the venous blood, and this is known as the dural venous sinus. Look here by the diagram here. Okay, suppose this is the cranial cavity with a cut section. Okay, if you take here, look here, suppose here. Okay, if you take a cross section here or the coronal section here, I'm taking here the coronal section through the base of the skull, okay, or passes through the pituitary fossa. Clear? So look here. It's a coronal section. This is the pituitary fossa. Here, this is the sphenoid bone, which has the two sinuses, sphenoidal layer sinuses separated by the partition. Okay, here. And this is the pituitary gland. Okay, here. Now look here. This cranial vault here and the base is lined by the endosteal layer, and this endosteal layer is adhere with the bone. Okay, here. So this is the sky blue color. Here is the endosteal layer. Okay, here. So tightly adhere with the bone. Okay. Difficult to separate, especially at the base. Okay, it can be separated with slight resistance from the calvaria, but difficult to separate from the base. Okay, here. Now, this is the layer, the red color. Okay, here. This is the layer. Okay, this endosteal layer. And this layer here, especially when it reaches towards the midline here, at midline it's separate. Like this, to form a sinus. Okay, again it comes periphery and adhere with the endosteal layer, and at the base, at the side of the sphenoid bone, again it leaves like this and passes through the pituitary stalk, winds around the pituitary stalk and pituitary gland. It is towards the floor of the pituitary fossa, again reaches towards the pituitary stalk, and again leaves, again it reaches laterally and passes inferior side over here to the base and then adhere with the endosteal layer. Okay. So in this position you are seeing the two gaps are formed here. One gap in the midline and two gaps by the side of the sphenoid bone in the pituitary gland. So these are the sinuses here. This sinus is known as superior sagittal sinus and these sinuses are known as the cavernous sinus. So these are the dural venous sinuses. Okay. So most of the dural venous sinuses are formed between the endosteal layer and the meningeal layer of the dura mater, except the two sinuses. That is one is the inferior sagittal sinus. What's happen? This is a superior sagittal sinus, two layer, meningeal layer. Okay, meningeal layer separate, and then again it fuse. Okay, here, and again it separate. Okay, here. Is separate to form the inferior sagittal sinus. So this is inferior sagittal sinus and the superior sagittal sinus. Here it fuse, again it separate and form the. So you can see here this inferior sagittal sinus is between the two meningeal layer, and second sinus is straight sinus. Its straight sinus is formed between the two layer of the two meningeal layer. Look here, if you see a diagram here, the different sinuses. Look here, this is the fold of the dura mater, falx cerebri. Okay, this is the falx cerebri. This is the pituitary fossa. Okay, and this is the free margin of the tentorium cerebelli. Okay, and here is the attached margin of the tentorium cerebelli. Here. Okay, so this is the falx cerebri. This is the tentorium cerebelli. Here, attached margin. Okay, here, and the falx cerebelli attached to the here upper surface of the tentorium cerebelli. Okay, so this is attachment tentorium cerebelli. Now in this folding here, different sinuses are there. Look here. One, this is the superior sagittal sinus. Okay, the superior sagittal sinus is at the upper attached margin of the falx cerebri. Okay, so this is the superior sagittal sinus, and so this superior sagittal sinus deviate towards the right side to continue as a transverse sinus, right transverse sinus. Okay, this is the right transverse sinus, and this right transverse sinus then continues as a right sigmoid sinus. This is the right sigmoid sinus. Okay, here. Clear? Now, look here. This is the inferior sagittal sinus. This inferior sinus present at the free margin of the falx cerebri between the two layer of the falx cerebri. Means this falx cerebri meningeal layer separate and here. And this inferior sagittal sinus unite with the straight sinus here. This is the straight sinus. Okay, this is the straight sinus here. It is situated at the attached margin of the falx cerebri posteriorly with the superior surface of the tentorium cerebelli here. So this is here. So here at the attachment here, this is the straight sinus, and this straight sinus is continue as a left transverse sinus. Okay, so this is continuation of the left transverse sinus here, and this left transverse sinus again continue with the here as a sigmoid sinus. Okay, so this is the sigmoid sinus, left sigmoid sinus, the left transverse sinus here. Clear? Yeah. Now, by the side of the pituitary fossa, here is the cavernous sinus here. This is the cavernous sinus here. And these two cavernous sinuses are connected to each other in the midline. by the anterior and posterior intercavernous sinus. So these are the anterior and posterior intercavernous sinuses. Clear? Yeah. And then this cavernous sinus is connected towards the transverse sinus here. Okay. So the superior petrosal sinus. So this is the superior petrosal sinus here. Yeah. Superior petrosal sinus. While here the opposite side, superior petrosal sinus. Okay. While the termination of the sigmoid sinus, when it terminates to internal jugular vein here, so this sinus again connected to the superior bulb of the internal jugular vein, so the inferior petrosal sinus. So this is the inferior petrosal sinus. Okay, here. And here is the basilar venous plexus. This basilar venous plexus connect the two inferior petrosal sinus here. Okay, so this is the inferior petrosal sinus here, and both sides connected by the connecting channel here, the basilar venous plexus. This basilar venous plexus continues as a or connect the vertebral venous plexus. Okay, here. And here this is the this is a small fold here, the falx cerebelli. Okay, falx cerebelli. In the falx cerebelli here, there is the occipital sinus is situated here. It is started at the margin of the foramen magnum. Okay, I will show you in the skull here. This falx cerebelli, what's happened? Here it bifurcated like this. Okay, at the margin. So at the margin of the foramen magnum here, this sinus start sinus and drain into the here the junction of the straight sinus and the superior sinus. And here this area is known as a confluence of sinuses. Okay, where the superior sinus and the straight sinus it connected here to each other. This superior sinus continues the right transverse sinus, while the straight sinus continues the left transverse sinus here, and these sinus connected to each other here by the, this is known as the confluence of the sinuses. This is known as the confluence of sinuses, known as the tortuocahirophily. Tortuocahirophily. Okay, so this is this area. Okay, we have the straight sinus and the superior sinus and the occipital sinus connected to each other. So this area is tortuocahirophily. So in this diagram, you can see different sinuses are present here. Okay, and some other here the two other cavernous sinuses: superior petrosal sinus, inferior petrosal sinus, sigmoid sinus, transverse sinus, right and left. Okay, here. Then the straight sinus, then the occipital sinus, the inferior sagittal sinus, superior sagittal sinus. So all sinuses are in between the two layers of the dura mater, endosteal meningeal layer, except the two sinuses. One is here, you can see the inferior sagittal sinus is located between the infolding of the meningeal layer. Okay, when the meningeal layer here descends downward and then again returns up here. So this is in this lower, and here the straight sinus where the this falx cerebri is attached to the tentorium cerebelli here. So attached at the attachment, this straight sinus is present. So this is also again between the meningeal layer, not the two endosteal and the meningeal layer, only purely meningeal layer. So in this fashion, sinuses are formed. Now, what are the qualities of the sinuses or the peculiarity of the dural venous sinuses? Dural venous sinuses, first peculiarity is they are is lined by the endothelium. Okay. Like here. So this is the endothelium. One thing. Okay. This is the endothelium. Okay. So they are lined by the endothelium. Like this. Okay. Second, they do not have the muscular cord. Okay. As in the artery or the vein. Only they are lined by the endothelium. But they do not have the muscular cord. And they do not have the valve. Okay, they are the valveless as present in the vein, but they are not present in the sinus, the dural venous sinus. So they are the valveless structure. Second quality is they collect the blood from the brain, meninges, orbit and the internal ear. Okay, different places here. Also they connected the emissary vein. We will see in the superior sinus, they connect the emissary vein, collect the blood from the scalp for the emissary vein. Okay, so purely they collect the blood from the brain, meninges, orbit, internal ear and also from the emissary, through the emissary vein, the scalp. Clear? And third quality is here, they absorb the blood, CSF, through the arachnoid granulation. Okay, they absorb the CSF through the arachnoid granulation, which we will see here in the superior sagittal sinus. Superior sagittal sinus, there is the arachnoid granulation, and through the arachnoid granulation, CSF enters into the venous blood here. And they also receive the emissary vein. I told you, valvulus emissary. Emissary veins are the valvulus. Okay, so they receive the emissary vein. Through the emissary vein, they maintain the pressure of the blood at the venous system in the scalp and the venous blood in the dural venous sinuses. Okay, so these are the peculiarity. Now, what are the different sinuses? Okay, different sinuses are, some are the paired sinuses, some are the unpaired sinuses. What are the paired sinuses? Look here. These are the paired sinuses, which are present on the both sides here. Look here. Here, look here. Here the attachment of the tentorium cerebelli here. There is the attachment of the falx cerebri here. Okay, here it a mid-sagittal portion here. Clear? So different sinuses. Look here. First is the paired sinuses. Paired sinuses are, one is the cavernous sinus. Important. Cavernous sinus, which is present on the both side of the body of the sphenoid bone here. Okay, here. So first cavernous sinus. Second is the transverse sinus. Transverse sinus present here at the attachment of the tentorium cerebelli. Okay, here at the transverse, the posterior part here. Okay, here up to the petrous part of the temporal bone here. This is the petrous bone. Okay, here at the corner here. Okay, so transverse sinus present here. Yeah. So transverse sinus. Then this transverse sinus contains sigmoid sinus. So there's sigmoid sinus, another pair sinus. Sigmoid sinus. Sigmoid sinus present in the groove here. You can see there's a groove. Okay, here. Start from here, reaches towards the jugular foramen. It reaches towards the jugular foramen here. Okay. So sigmoid sinus start from the angle and reaches jugular foramen. Clear? So sigmoid sinus. Then fourth is the superior petrosal sinus. Superior petrosal sinus present here at the upper margin of the attached margin of the tentorium cerebelli here. Okay. Then the inferior petrosal sinus. Inferior petrosal sinus, which is present at the lower part, okay, lower border of the petrous temporal bone here. Okay, so this is the position or the location of the inferior petrosal sinus. Then the sixth is the sphenoparietal sinus here. In this location is the sphenoid bone. Okay, here this is the sphenoid bone, lesser wing of the sphenoid bone here. Okay, in this area, this is the sphenoparietal sinus. Here I forget to mention. Look here. Like this here. This sphenoparietal sinus open into the cavernous sinus. Okay, so sphenoparietal sinus in this location. So this is the sphenoparietal sinus, and the seventh is a petrosquamous sinus. Petrosquamous sinus. This is the petrous temporal bone and the ischiumous bone here. Okay, here. So in this area, the petroischiumous sinus is present, and the last is the middle meningeal vein. Middle meningeal vein. It also act as a sinus. Okay, so middle meningeal on the both side here. So these are the sinuses, the paired sinuses, which is present on the both side of the midline here. Clear? Now what are the unpaired sinuses? Unpaired sinuses here. Unpaired sinuses. First is the superior sagittal sinus. I told you here, this is superior sagittal sinus present in the midline at the superiorly attached margin of the falx cerebri. Okay, so this in this location. This is the superior sagittal sinus. Second is the inferior sagittal sinus. Inferior sagittal sinus. Third is the straight sinus. Okay, so this is the straight sinus. Okay, straight sinus. Fourth is the occipital sinus here. This is the occipital sinus. Then the fifth is the anterior intercavernous sinus. Anterior intercavernous sinus. Sixth is the posterior intercavernous sinus. Posterior intercavernous sinus. And the seventh is basilar venous plexus here. This is also a sinus, active sinus. Basilar venous plexus. Okay, so these are the unpaired sinuses. Clear? So we have seen the paired sinuses and the one side unpaired sinuses. Now, out of this, now discuss the superior sagittal sinus. How the superior sagittal sinus is formed and what are the tributaries and how the sinus ends here. Look here. This sinus is formed between the two layers of the dura mater, endosteal layer and the meningeal layer. First is the superior sagittal sinus. Superior sagittal sinus. Now, first draw the diagram. Okay, look here. This is the bone, skull bone here, calvaria portion. If you take cross section from here, okay, here. So this sinus is a triangular sinus. Okay, cross section, a triangular sinus. This is the calvaria bone. Okay, here this is the skin. Okay, here, and this is the dura mater, endosteal layer of the dura mater attached to the bone. Sorry, here, and this is the endosteal and this is the meningeal layer. This is the meningeal layer. Which is attached here, it is separated to form the sinus, then fused, and again separate to form the inferior sagittal sinus here. Okay. So, and this meningeal layer is adhere to the endosteal layer all around, but in the midline it is separated to form the superior sagittal sinus here, like this. Clear? So this is. Then second layer is, this is the arachnoid layer. Arachnoid matter. Okay. This arachnoid matter is also connected to the meningeal layer here, like this, here, with a little space, very small space, and this space is traversed by the fibrous tissue. That's why the arachnoid matter here. Okay, then inner side, this is the brain tissue. This is the brain tissue, gyri and the sulci. This pink color is the pia mater, which is adhere or to the brain tissue and goes along the gyri and sulci and lines. Same thing here, opposite side. This is the pia mater and the lines with the, and this is the subarachnoid space. Okay, here below that, this is arachnoid. Now, what are the structure inside this superior sinus? Okay, superior sinus, there is a certain structure which passes or attains inside the superior sinus. These are, first is the superior cerebral vein here. The superior cerebral vein traverses the subdural space and enters into the, or opens into this sagittal sinus, superior sagittal sinus. Okay, here. Then here, this is the green color, yes. This is this arachnoid granulation. Okay, the green color. The arachnoid matter bulge inside the superior sinus here, like this. Okay, like this here. It bulge. What is arachnoid granulation? Arachnoid granulation is a ball valve-like mechanism through which CSF drains or enters into the this venous blood in the superior sinus only in one direction. Okay, so this is a arachnoid granulation which enters and bulges inside the superior sinus here. Clear? In spite of this, there is the here. Look here, red color. They are in the frontal, parietal, and occipital region. They are the venous lacunae. Okay, these are the venous lacunae found here. Okay, and this venous lacunae drains the blood into the superior sagittal sinus. So this is also present in the between the dural and the meningeal layer of the dura mater here. So these are the venous lacunae, and these venous lacunae drains the blood, especially in the two sides. One in the from the diploic space here, and one in the from the emissary veins from the scalp. Okay, so these are the emissary veins which drains into the venous lacunae, and these venous lacunae ultimately drain the blood into the superior sinus. So there are the three venous lacunae present here in the frontal, parietal, and occipital region or the position. Okay, here. So these are the content of the superior sagittal sinus. And if you see the drainage, okay, what are the structure? The veins drains into the superior sagittal sinus. There are nothing. There are two which we have discussed here. One is the superior cerebral vein here. Superior cerebral vein are the 8 to 10 in number. They drain the blood into superior sinus, and they drain the blood and run obliquely upward like this. Suppose this is the sinus, superior sinus here, which runs here. And I told you, superior sinus, this superior sinus, I told you, present in the attached margin of the falx cerebri. Okay, falx cerebri attached along this sagittal suture. Okay, the dura mater is attached and meningeal layer separate here. Anteriormost here, it is this falx ribeye attached to the crista galli. This is the crista galli. Okay, here, which is attached here. Anterior end of the falx ribeye attached here. So superior side start here, and it is start sometime. There is a vein. Okay, from the nose which passes through the foramen cecum and continues as a superior sagittal sinus or drains into. So yes, sometimes, and this vein here comes from the nasal cavity. Clear? So when this superior sinus passes posteriorly, it gradually widens. Okay, the width increases and it reaches a triangular in cross section. Yeah. So this is here. Now I was here. There's a vein, the superior cerebral veins. They drain the blood like this, obliquely. Okay, like this, obliquely, in opposite to the current of the draining blood here. The blood passes here and then drains into here towards the posterior end of the superior sagittal sinus, then continues superior sagittal sinus, continues the right transverse sinus here. So blood passes here and do not re-enter into the superior cerebral vein. Clear? So 8 to 10 superior cerebral vein drains the blood from the superior surface and the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. Okay, here. Then the second is they drain the blood from the diploic space and the emissary vein from the scalp here. So the venous lacunae. So the two sides, especially the blood drains into the superior sagittal sinus. Okay. Then what are the communication? If you see the communication of sinus here, this sinus communicate with the scalp through the emissary vein. Okay, here, so the emissary parietal, occipital, okay, emissary vein. And occasionally, I told you, this sinus also communicate with the nasal vein here. Sometimes there is a one vein from the nose, passes through the foramen cecum, and this sinus communicated with the nasal vein here. This is the sinus. Okay, superior sinus, and this is the, suppose here, this is a cavernous sinus. So this cavernous sinus here, with the superior sinus communicated by the superior anastomotic vein. Okay, so this is the superior anastomotic vein of the Tollard. Okay. This is superior anastomotic vein of Tollard, and also superficial middle cerebral vein. Okay, it also communicated with the superficial middle cerebral vein. This is the superficial middle cerebral vein, which comes from the medial side of the brain. Okay, so this is the superficial medial, superficial middle cerebral vein. Okay, so by the two veins, this superior sinus communicated with the cavernous sinus, superficial anastomotic vein of Tollard and superficial middle cerebral vein. Okay, so at the three sides, this superior sinus are communicated. One side is here with the emissary vein of the scalp, one side here from the nose, clear, through the vein which passes from the cecum, and third communication with the cavernous sinus. So this is the sinus, superior sinus communicated. Now this superior sinus thrombosis occur due to the infection. In the infection may reaches from the nose, okay, either from the scalp, okay, or either from the diploic space, because the diploic space here, I told you, the diploic space for the bones from the calvaria portion drain the blood in the superior sinus for the venous lacunae. So either infection in the nose or infection in the scalp or infection in the diploic spore. These infection may reaches to the superior sinus, and superior sinus thrombosis may occur, okay, which increases the pressure inside the sinus and which also hamper the drainage of the blood from the subdural space, subarachnoid space here. Okay, so there is a increased pressure increases in the CSF fluid. Okay. So this is, I think, all about the superior sinus. Another sinus is this straight sinus. Straight sinus here is formed by the two internal cerebral veins from the brain. Inside the brain, what's happened here? Look here. These are the two internal cerebral vein comes. Okay. These internal cerebral vein unite to form the great cerebral vein here. Okay, two internal cerebral vein unite to form the great cerebral vein, and great cerebral vein continues as a straight sinus. Okay, this is straight sinus, and straight sinus here, at the starting of the straight sinus there is a union of the inferior sagittal sinus. Inferior sagittal sinus enters into the straight sinus, and then straight sinus continues here. Clear? So two internal cerebral vein unite, reaches backward and continue from the in cerebral vein, great cerebral vein of the Galen. Okay, so this is the great cerebral vein. Of the Galen. And this great cerebral vein of the Galen here continues as a straight sinus. Clear? So now what are the, if you see the tributaries of this sinus, tributaries come from the inferior sagittal sinus, here one, and the few superior cerebellar vein here in this region here, the cerebellum is here. Okay, here below the tentorium cerebelli is the cerebellum. So from the superior surface cerebellum, veins directly enter into the superior sagittal sinus here, and the, I told you, great cerebral vein of the Galen. Okay, so great cerebral vein of the Galen, inferior sagittal sinus or superior surface cerebellum drains the blood through the veins, superior cerebellar vein, it enters into. So these are the tributaries of this sinus. So this is the straight sinus, okay, in short. So I think this is all about the dural venous sinuses, how they are formed and what are the different type, and out of this the two sinuses we have discussed, unpaired sinuses. One is the superior sagittal sinus and one is the straight sinus. This is all about the dural venous sinuses. Thank you.